Hello and welcome back to I Made This. My name is Ollie and today we're going to be talking about a film that I've been working on for the past 3 years called The Legend of Chloe. So I'm making this video because I need to kick my arse into gear and get this film over the finishing line. As I said, I've been working on it for over 3 years and it's time now to get it finished. I wasn't intending for it to take this long, but with the pandemic causing delays in production and making many music videos along the way in that time, it's just meant that I could only work on this video like intermittently in between productions and things like that. But now I'm going to dedicate more time to kind of getting it finished basically. And I thought it'd be fun with this channel to kind of document all the processes that I've done already, so like making the costumes and the production and some of the editing, to what I've got to do now leading up to finalising the film, such as the special effects, music, sound effects, ADR, shooting additional sequences and pickup shots and things like that. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing with this channel for a couple of months. But I thought, we should probably go back to where all this started. And I guess you could say it started when I was, 4 years old and I was obsessed with Master of the Universe, or, playing Legend of Zelda on my Super Nintendo. And more recently playing like Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. Yes, I've played Dungeons and Dragons and it's good fun. But really it dates back to March of 2019 when the Psychedelic Porn Crumpets asked me to make a music video for their new single Bill's Mandolin. And they sent me the track and they said, just come up with an idea, whatever you want to make. And so I listened to it a couple of times and it's quite a jaunty track. And so I kept getting like questing vibes from it, and I thought, this is the perfect song to make a music video that I can instill all those things I love, like Master of the Universe, Zelda, Lord of the Rings, Dungeons and Dragons, But, the budget wasn't massive, so, we couldn't really go all out. So I thought, let's make it a bit Mighty Boosh-esque, so the costumes can be a bit low rent. But then I thought, we need castles and things like that. How are we going to do that? And so I thought, there's that show Nightmare in the 80s and 90s. And if you haven't seen Nightmare, it's this great show. It's like a game show for kids where, a group of kids are in like this room with like a dungeon master. And they've kind of got a video screen. And on that video screen, they've got a friend that's in like a green screen room. And he's got a big helmet on. They can't see where he's going. And his friends direct him like left or right or, forward and back and to pick things up because it's on a green screen, the environment is kind of filled out with like a dungeon area or whatever that's, it's obviously not really there. But it's like a rudimentary video game and it was super fun and had one of the best intros to a TV show ever. So I thought, taking all these ideas together and mashing them all together, we can make like a really fun little music video. And over 2 days, myself, my friend Az, Neil Quinn, Rich Howell, Natalie Gardner, my friend Billy from the band Bad Girlfriend, we all got together and we made this like music video essentially, where a young drunken man finds a sword in the middle of the road, pulls it out, holds it aloft, and he's transported to a fantasy land where he kind of encounters like giant spiders, dragons, skeleton warriors, witches, sorceresses, giant castles, and things like that. And it was a lot of fun to make, and again, because we didn't have much money, a lot of the villains and things like that are either claymation characters or hand-drawn, and I think it was super fun. Obviously there's things I would change about it now, but given that I only had like 3 weeks to make it, I think it turned out alright. People seem to enjoy it. But after making the video, I kind of kept getting this nagging feeling in the back of my head that I wanted to make it again, but only bigger and better. Now, I don't know if there's any people who are watching this who are filmmakers or just creative people in general, but once you get an idea in your head, it's really, really hard to get it out there. The only way for me to get this idea out of my head for a second time is to actually make it. And so that's what I did. I got all my ideas together and put them into a script, and it was a 10-page script. And it was all right. It had all the elements of the music video in there, just elongated. So I sent the script to a couple of friends and they were like, yeah, it's all right, if that's what you want to make. But my one friend Lena gave me the best piece of advice, and I'm sure it was just a quick thing that she said to me, but she said, why don't you change it from a male character to a female character? And that just blew it wide open for me. and completely changed how I saw the film for the better. You know, it changed from being like a silly little film about a drunken guy trying to kill a skeleton lord and getting arrested at the end, to this kind of more heartfelt, emotionally led, like, little fantasy film. And you know, I'm so grateful for that little bit of advice, well, not even advice, just suggestion, because it just completely changed it for the better. So taking on board Lena's advice, I reworked the script and then sent it to my friend Stu, who's a professional screenwriter and has written many films that, you know, have had big budgets and big movie stars in them. And he just gave me one suggestion, really, and that was to change the sword to an axe. I don't know why that's the sword, that's an axe, but anyway. And, you know, he purely for the fact, he said, it's just something a bit different. You know, swords are overdone, you know, Excalibur and things like that. You know, do an axe, it's a bit different. And I don't think he realises, but that one little, you know, a piece of advice or thought or whatever completely changed the film again, much like Lena's did. And, you know, growing up, music was a big part of my life, and it still is to this day. I listen to it non-stop. I'm obsessed with it. It's why I make music videos for a living. It's because, you know, I'm not a talented musician. I dabbled when I was a kid, but, like, you know, making music videos is my way of kind of being around the music industry. And so if you go back to the Bill's mandolin video, he uses a mandolin at the end, you know, a magical mandolin to fight with. And so I thought, you know, what's another word for an axe but a guitar? So why don't we have it that the axe turns into a guitar at the end, or a bass guitar, and have it that Chloe really wants to be a musician. And, you know, at the beginning of the film, she's trying out for this Riot Girl punk rock band, and you know, the audition doesn't go very well. And on her walk home, that's when the axe appears to her. And, you know, we've got a bit of character growth and progression that, you know, once you see the end of the film, it all comes full circle. And, you know, just that one little bit of advice, it created endless possibilities for the film. And I don't think people realise sometimes just that one little idea can spark so much. So yeah, taking on board Lena and Stu's advice, I started to rewrite the script again. But I'm not much of a writer. I'm a visual person. That's why I'm an animated director, not a writer. I find it quite frustrating. You know, I know what I want to happen in the film and the character progressions and the arcs and things like that, but in terms of what the characters say, that's not really my forte. So I called up my friend Paul Naden, who is one of my best friends, and he's a fantastic actor, but he's also a really good writer as well. And I said, because he's an actor, he kind of knows the kind of dialogue that actors like to, you know, say and perform, you know. And because this is like a very camp, over the top kind of film, you know, a bit like those Master of the Universe cartoons that I was talking about that I used to watch as a kid, he kind of got the tone straight away, and gave the characters these kind of like really over the top bombastic monologues that, you know, actors relish. So yeah, the script then went from 10 pages to 30 pages. So I had this quite hefty short film on my hands with a lot of special effects and animated characters and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, it's typical me, making life incredibly hard for myself. But yeah, so now we've got this script, I had to cast it, and thankfully there's not many characters in the film. But first of all, I contacted Natalie, who was in the music video, and she played the Witch and the Sorceress. And she jumped at the chance to be part of it again, and I said, you know, we're going to have better costumes, you know, better effects, and, you know, you're actually going to have some real meaty dialogue to deliver. So she was really excited about that. I've worked with Natalie loads. We've done many music videos and award-winning short films and things together, and so I always love working with Natalie. She's fantastic. But then casting our hero Chloe, that was a bit different. I used to teach at Sutton College here in Birmingham, in the acting department. I'm not an acting teacher, but I used to help with the TV and video side of it, you know, when the kids made films and things like that. And one of the students was Christy Reeves, and she appeared in a few of my music videos and stuff that I've made. But she's also an amazing musician. She plays the ukulele, she's got a beautiful voice, and she does like kind of pop folky stuff. And so I gave her a call and I said, look, do you fancy being in my film? You know, I sent her the script and met up with her, and she loved the idea, and, you know, she was well up for the challenge. So I've got my witch, my sorceress, and my hero. The other two main characters are the knight, that's kind of like the mentor to Chloe, kind of like the Obi-Wan kind of character that kind of puts her on her quest and kind of, I don't know, trains her, I guess. And that part went to my friend Brian Portsmouth, who again is another fantastic actor I've worked with many times, and most notably he was in the film Clockwise with John Cleese. And then to round off the cast, my good friend Chris Kenyon, who has been in many of my films. Most notably he was the main character in my Prodigy music video. He plays the Evil Lord. I know, interesting name, but yeah, he he's the main antagonist of the film, I guess. And I said to him, look, you up for this? And he's like, yeah. And I said, we need to paint you purple. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So yeah, we painted him purple. So thanks, Chris. So now I've got my script, my cast. The next thing to do is to get started on the pre-production. So the one thing about me is when I start a project, I usually just jump straight in. The first thing I did on this project was make the costumes, because I knew this was like one of the most important parts of it, because I was really happy with the cast. I didn't need to worry about that. One of my biggest pet peeves of the music video was the costumes. Like I said, they're all made of cardboard and they were constantly falling apart, falling off the actors, so we were constantly having to gaffer tape them on, and it was just a right pain in the arse. And I really wanted to up my game with these costumes on this film. Originally I thought maybe I hire suits of armour and things like that, but when I started to look into it and speak to prop and costume houses, it was either very expensive or what they had was not really what I was looking for. And then I thought my only option is to, make them myself. And again, like I said, I didn't want to make them out of cardboard. So after doing some research, I found out about this material called EVA foam. It's what cosplayers use, and it's really malleable because you can cut it and glue it and shape it into anything you want and treat it and paint it to kind of look like plastic or metal. So people make like suits of armour for like Mass Effect or Batman or things like that. And I bought a whole load of it in different thicknesses, but I had no idea what I was doing with this stuff. But I found out about this cosplayer called Camu Cosplay, and she's got a load of different templates that you can download off her store for suits of armour and shoulder plates and things like that. So I downloaded loads of those, printed them out and scaled them and kind of reworked them to kind of fit my own designs. So I had a lot of fun making these costumes. As you can see, they're a little bit worse for wear now. This is like over 3 years of running around in the woods kind of damage. So you can see all the kind of primer paint underneath and things like that. But I promise you, when we started to film, they looked fantastic. I mean, I did purposely age these as well, so they did look old, but they look like a bit worse now than they did. I made 2 of these pieces of armour. One was scaled a bit bigger for Brian, who is the mentor, the other knight character, and the idea is that that piece of armour is passed then down to Christie's character Chloe, and I just made a smaller one for Christie, so it just fits her a little bit better and just looks a bit cooler on her. Otherwise it would just be hanging off her. But a smart person would design this first before actually crafting it, coming up with the detail and the patterns and things like that. I kind of just came up with it as I was making it. I didn't have much time, and I really didn't know what I was doing, so I just thought, what happens if I cut this here and add a piece here? And I kind of started to create the visuals of the world and the characters on the fly, really. So I carried on this motif throughout, all the castle buildings and the other weapons such as the swords. So they've kind of got all the same kind of motifs and things like that. I also carried over the pattern onto the gauntlets as well, and as you can see, we used watch straps and also belt buckles to kind of hold the costume together. It worked a lot better than gaffer tape, I can tell you that. And as you can see, we also carried over the pattern onto the shoulder armour, which I made segmented so that when the characters are running around they've got full motion, because you can sometimes make these costumes too good that the actors just can't move or perform in them. And here's the axe that lands in front of Chloe. Originally I was going to make it smaller, but Christie's quite small, just over 5 foot, so I thought it'd be quite funny if she had this massive axe that she had to lumber around with. Sorry, Christie. But yeah, I was super pleased with this. But again, I carried on the motif and the same colours. I love teals and blues together. I think it's kind of got a very regal, royal feel to it. Also made her a shield as well. Again, these are all looking a bit worse for wear now because they've just been trashed around, kept in storage and whatnot. But again, they did look nice at one point, I promise you. So in regard to costumes, Christie has several in the film. She starts off wearing her school uniform because I thought, you know, what better way to kind of show that someone is like young, 16, 17 years old, than to have them wearing their school uniform. And then when she's getting ready to go to the tryouts for the band, she puts her armour on, which is like her rock attire. And because this film's set in the late 90s, you know, she's kind of got like denim-y dungaree kind of skirt on with the stripy jumper, kind of a bit Tim Burton-ish, I guess. And she's got some big kind of Doc Martin boots, clunky boots. And she also has this bag, which the one thing, you know, a lot of kids did when I was at school was we'd write all our favourite band names on our bags. And so Chloe's no different. So yeah, these are all bands that are, you know, a time period. No one appears after 1997 on here. But yeah, so that's her bag. She also has a Walkman that she's listening to the demo tape of the band that she's trying out for. As she's like traversing this fantasy land, fighting goblins and all sorts of things. And I covered it in stickers of all bands that are appropriate for the time period. And this Walkman, I bought 2 of them, plays a big part in the film. But yeah, in terms of her costumes, like I said, she's got this one, which then evolves into this one. So this is her final suit. This is kind of like in the video game where you've unlocked everything and you've kind of got the super duper suit that kind of makes you invincible. And so that's what this suit is. And again, it's made like the other suit. It's EVA foam, which you use contact cement to kind of glue everything together. That stuff is horrible and it's really potent, and you know, make sure you're in a well ventilated area or you've got a mask on when you're using that stuff. I didn't really wear a mask and I probably should have done, got lots of headaches, so I regret doing that. But yeah, she's got a cape now because, you know, once you get super powerful, you obviously get a cape. And she's kind of got this cool headdress as well. And then, as I said earlier, she's got her axe that turns into the super duper bass axe. And that's what this is here. So, yeah. Les Claypool's got nothing on me. Anyway, yeah, so this was donated to me by my good friend Ash Trigg, who's a fantastic bassist. He's in a band called Big Troppy. Check them out. But yeah, he said you can do whatever you want with it. And to return the favour, the axe in the film is now called Trig Ox. So, you know, a nice little reference to Ash there. But yeah, I cut the rest of the bass off here and kind of sculpted it and built the axe around it with the EVA foam.
Do I look ridiculous?
No, you look cool. Looks brilliant.
I made these little axes that are kind of just for special effects. You don't really see them for very long and they're very quick and very small in the film, but you know, using these big axes as special effects elements is quite cumbersome, so I thought I'd make some smaller ones that I can rotate around and spin around and stuff. So I've got these little ones here. So this is Natalie's first costume. It's for the witch, obviously, and I wanted it to be kind of sleek and sexy, not in a gratuitous way, more of a fun, campy kind of way. If you watch the music video, she's kind of got like this bodice on that looks cheap and crap, and she's got like rubbish cardboard armour on, and I wanted this thing to look badass, like with leather and metal and things like that. So I hired my friend Peter Hewitt, who's a fantastic seamstress and has made loads of costumes for me in the past, and he made this like form-fitted bodice for Natalie, and it fit her perfectly, and hopefully it was comfortable for her. It probably wasn't that comfortable once we added all this to it. But yeah, so the chest piece is kind of like meant to be a bit Evil Lyn from He-Man like. The shoulder pads are kind of like, you know, Christie's, but they're kind of pointed and evil. Again, all made with EVA foam, glued together with contact cement and covered in silicone to fill in the gaps. As for the gauntlets, we added the spikes. Peter suggested I added a smaller spike because it looked cool, and what Peter says goes because he's awesome. The mask is kind of based on Magneto and I guess the Scarlet Witch. The cape is a holdover from the Bill's Mandolin video, as are these cape holder honor thingies, I don't know what you call them. But these were a Halloween toy that I cast in resin and painted them up and weathered them with shoe polish. In fact, the whole body armour is covered in shoe polish. Like if you ever watch Cosplay Chris, he's famous for kind of covering everything in shoe polish and like kind of aging and weathering it. But these cause massive problems in post-production because they're green and a lot of it was shot on green screen. When you apply the green screen effects, it takes them away. So I had to spend a long time masking them in After Effects back into existence, and that was a pain in the ass. But to top off the costume, you've kind of got the purple tights that kind of add to it. You've got these kind of badass boots, which I think Natalie hated wearing because I don't think they're very comfortable, and because we were in the woods a lot, she kind of sunk into the mud a lot. So sorry about that, Natalie. But Peter kind of cut these to have like an awesome point, so they've kind of got that kind of, again, that He-Man-y kind of super villain kind of look. And then to top it all off, we've got this with the ram skull, which is very Skeletor-like, and on the other end you've got the blade. But yeah, this top bit was a holdover from the Bill's Mandolin video, but everything else was constructed for the short film. There's a point in the film where this gets cut in half, and then for reshoots I was like, oh, it needs to be back together again, so I had to spend ages kind of jimming it back together. And then this is Natalie's second costume. It's the sorceress, goddess, queen, whatever costume. And I think it's one of my favourite in the film. Let's make no bones about it, it's a complete rip-off of the sorceress from Masters of the Universe. Even down to the colours and the wings on the suit. But, you know, I just wanted to pay homage to that design because I absolutely adore it. Again, with the music video, it was just a leotard with a bunch of fuzzy felt feathers stuck onto it. And much like the witch costume, I just really wanted to up the game with this costume. But this is Peter's baby. He did such a fantastic job on this costume, creating the feathers on the bodice and the nice line work on the suit there. And I just accentuated it with the shoulder pads that are kind of a carryover from Christy and Brian's costumes. And then this helmet, I was so pleased with how this turned out. I think I got to a point with my EVA crafting skills that I could kind of form my own structures and that, and I just made this helmet from scratch, and I had no idea if it would work or not. But then the moment we put it on Natalie's head, it just looked perfect, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. Then to top it all off, we had these really cool blue boots that were the exact same boots as these, but they were white. And then I covered them in Mod Podge and this like really cool turquoise paint that would adhere to leatherette material. And they looked amazing. We didn't point the edge off, we kept it flat. And when Natalie had the whole costume on it, it created this really cool 1960s go-go girl kind of look, and they looked fantastic. I have no idea where those boots have gone now. They've disappeared into the ether somewhere. I don't know. And this is the costume that Chris wore in the film as the Evil Lord. Evil Lord made me laugh because, you know, what's more evil than an evil lord? But yeah, it's not my favourite costume I made. It was made in a bit of a hurry. I made it in like 3 days because I was in the middle of an animation job, and I'd already booked the filming dates with Chris to film his scenes for the film, and they couldn't be moved. And so I had to quickly assemble this costume as quick as I could. I wanted to move away from the Skeletor look that's in the music video and kind of go for this more like Shovel Knight kind of look to it. You know, on screen it looks fine because, you know, there's lots of effects going on and things like that that kind of masks some of the kind of hodgepodge nature of it. But actually, to be honest, when Chris put it all on, he actually looks pretty intimidating because he had a massive sword that I made for him that had these like hilt with these big giant purple prongs sticking out of it. I think Chris has got that sword because I can't find it anywhere. We also gave him like a barbarian kind of belt skirt kind of thing, and he also had like these leg braces, and he was barefoot. But yeah, the other thing is this character was completely purple. You know, like how Skeletor's that blue colour? I thought it'd be quite fun that, you know, we carry on that purple and green motif and like paint Chris completely purple. And my friend Jules, who was a fantastic makeup artist, she like painted him up purple. It took several hours, but it was well worth it. He looked really cool in the end. But yeah, he's actually not the final character I'm going to show you. The last character is in fact a puppet. So this is Wispy. He is a puppet. And as I said before, I'm a massive glutton for punishment, and I like to make life really, really hard for myself. And I thought it'd be really fun if Chloe had a companion in the film that could guide her around this fantasy land. And because I'm a massive fan of Jim Henson and the Muppets, and I've done puppets before in music videos for the likes of Anu and I and the Psychedelic Pork Crumpets, I'm not making a realistic looking film like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. I'm making like a fantasy film through my own filter, through my own vision, which means there's going to be stop motion characters, hand drawn 2D characters, and so why not put puppets in as well? But yeah, he's not finished yet. He still needs a bit more work done to him. He's going to have light up eyes and things like that. My good friend Richard Howell is going to puppeteer him, and he's done puppeteering for me in the past before. He's a fantastic actor, so he's going to put a lot of personality into Wispy, I think. But yeah, the one thing I'm not looking forward to is the compositing, because I'm going to have to composite Wispy into every single shot with Christy in it. And that's going to be brutal. But yeah, say hello, Wispy. So now we've got our script, our cast, and our costumes. It's now time to get into production. So we shot the music video at the tail end of winter, beginning of springtime, and it was pretty cold, and I didn't want to wait a whole other year, so I wanted to get this film going as soon as possible.
How's your day been on the psychedelic porn crumpets video?
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I've been sliced in half. I've nearly frozen to death. But yeah, it's been fun.
Filming mostly took place during the summer of 2019 for about 5 or 6 days. We mostly shot in Sutton Park or in a green screen studio called 101 in Birmingham. And it was a skeleton crew of myself on camera. I don't like being a DP, it's not my forte. You know, I'm pretty decent at doing shot composition and, you know, actual camera work. But in terms of lighting, that's not my forte. But, you know, I didn't really have the money to afford to pay for a DP, sadly. But, you know, I don't think I did a bad job. So, I mean, you make up your own mind when you see the film. But I also had my good friend Neil Quinn helping out behind the scenes as a general dog's body, you know, moving things, holding things, you know, just being a really good friend. And much like Christy, who was an ex-student of mine, Tom Cooper was also one of my old students, and we roped him in and got him to do the sound for the film. He's worked for me in the past before, and he's done a fantastic job. And because filmmaking is a collaborative endeavour, sometimes the cast have to chip in and help out behind the scenes when they're not in front of the camera. But yeah, I think filming went particularly well, and we got the bulk of the film done at that point. But we had a few additional days in September and October where we shot additional scenes with Christy and Natalie, and then also we shot all of the scenes with Chris as the evil lord. I then took some time off the film in November and December because I worked on my friend James's film called Heads Up Hoppin', and then in December I directed a music video for the band Me and That Man. And then in the new year I got back to work on the film and started to actually edit it all together. And it's at that point you realise, I probably need something here or there, and you know, you start to get new ideas to kind of build up the film. And you know, I started to book dates with the actors and the crew, and yeah, that's when COVID hit. So yeah, all my filming dates went out the window, and you know, I just had to continue editing and doing the effects for what I already had. And it was in that time as well, I was on Instagram and I saw this location. I was like, where's that? That looks amazing. There's a place called Ludge Church in the Peak District. And it's this amazing, like, cavernous rock formation that's kind of, it's quite wide and it kind of goes on for quite a long way. And it's all moss green, and it looks like something out of Master of the Universe or Lord of the Rings or whatever. And so I was like, we're going there, we're filming there. And so once COVID was, well, for the first time, COVID was out of the way, we drove to Ludge Church in the morning, like at about 6 in the morning, and we filmed Christy climbing around all these rocks and things like that in a costume. It looked fantastic. Production value at the wazoo, I loved it. And then we shot some extra bits with Natalie, because not only does she play the witch and the sorceress, she plays this rock star that Christy looks up to. We shot like a mock music video with Natalie, and that was good fun. And then we shot some more scenes with Christy going around Sutton Park in the boggy, marshy areas and things like that. Then we also shot at Mother's Studio in Birmingham, the rehearsal studio where we had the band rehearsals and you know, things like that. That was super fun. I would say filming is about 95% done. I've booked in one more day of filming, and this is for an introduction scene. And you know, like films of this ilk, like fantasy films, they tend to have a crawl that kind of explains what's going on, the lore of the, you know, the world you're about to kind of inhabit in the film. But what I thought would be really interesting is to have a young Chloe, which is going to be played by my friend's daughter, like around 6 years old, watching a cartoon that she loves, and you know, wearing the costume. It's very similar to this, but kind of made out of fuzzy felt and things like that. You know, she's eating a cereal or whatever, but she's watching a cartoon, and what we see is the introduction of this cartoon that's very Master of the Universe or Thundercats-like, that kind of explains the lore, so that once the fantasy stuff in the film kind of comes into being, you're already up to speed, and you kind of know what's going on. You're not kind of thrown for a loop. So where are we at now with the film? I'd say the film is pretty much edited together. I'm just going to do a little bit more work, you know, to tighten it up. Obviously I've got to include the new sequence that I'm filming in a couple of weeks. Visual effects, I'd say I'm about 50% done with those. I've still got several major sequences to do though. You know, I've got to do the animated intro that I spoke about earlier. There's a sequence in the film that's like a montage where Chloe's questing and facing off against loads of different kind of monsters and creatures. There's a mountaintop battle outside the castle where Chloe faces off against a horde of the evil lord's minions. That's kind of like a you know, a Ray Harryhausen-esque sequence. There's a sequence where Chloe faces off against the evil witch who is riding a giant dragon or a giant crow, haven't decided which. And obviously I've got to do all the wispy shots as well, which I'm not going to lie is going to be an absolute nightmare. I've also got to get the music done. I've got someone in mind to do that, and it's going to be kind of like a 80s synthy fantasy kind of score, but mixed with kind of like 90s grunge music, because obviously that's the music that Chloe's into, and you know, she wants to play in a band that's that kind of music. And I thought it'd be really fun to kind of like do a fusion of that. And then the other thing I've got to finish off is the sound, and you know, that sound effects and ADR. You know, we shot in urban areas and in woodlands and things like that, so you're kind of going to get like interference with noise, be it like the wind or rustling of leaves or, you know, traffic and things like that. So, you know, I have to do ADR. I've done all of Christie's, so that's all done. I've done about 50% of Natalie's, and I've got to meet up with her soon and get the rest of hers finished, and I've got to meet up with Brian and get his done as well. But yeah, I think that kind of brings us up to speed with the film, to be honest. And you know, what I'm going to be doing with this channel now is documenting all the different processes I'm going to be doing until I finish the film. So be that making videos on me, animating the intro, or even live streams as I'm animating the mountaintop battle. I think that'd be super fun, and I hope you guys want to join me on the adventure of getting this film over the finishing line. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now. Don't forget, you can reach out to me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for I Made This, and I'd like to thank you very, very much for watching this video, and I hope I haven't bored you. And yeah, I'll see you on the next video. Cheers. Goodbye.